ways you can work around things to improve things, and it just seems like they're not trying to do that.
I think they're a good unit, obviously led by Victor Wembanyama.
Experience as a good head coach, like in the past 12 years ago when they won the Super Bowl.
B2-38 in an absolute thriller. Play after play. Touchdown after touchdown.
My family was just in complete disappointment.
Wanted to be a Philly, which is insane.
We saw the big thing after we first drafted him was that three-point shot. Obviously, he's draining that down, so we can't even really complain.
My team, so it's been really cool.
I'm definitely not a special guest. I'm a guest on a special podcast. That's what it is.
Yo, what's good, ladies and gentlemen? Hope you all are doing well here on this Sunday afternoon, and welcome back to another episode of Two Mics All Sports. I'm your host, Zachary JB, going solo today here for my NFL free agency predictions. I got about 25 free agents here. I'm going to give my predictions for where I see them going this offseason. So first and foremost, we're going to start off with Trey Hendrickson, the defensive end from the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously has been franchise tagged the past few years here, and now he's finally had the chance to become a free agent and sign with whoever he pleases, and I think that's going to be the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, the Cowboys are one of the teams trying to get Max Crosby, trying to acquire him. They were very close to, but then a bunch of teams got involved, and it was ultimately the Ravens. They were able to acquire the DN from the Raiders, and I just think the best consolation prize they're going to be able to do is acquire Trey Hendrickson. I don't know how much they're going to have to pay him. It might probably be a multi-year contract. If they're fine with that, I guess that's good with them, but I think it's a match made in heaven. Trey Hendrickson in Dallas, they need that defensive end help, obviously, and I think he would do great there. Finally, having been paid and motivated, I think he would do great in Dallas. So moving on to the next players, I have three wide receivers here. I think they're probably the top three wide receivers headlining this free agency. Obviously, the Tampa Bay Buccaneer wide receiver himself, Mike Evans, I have him returning back to Tampa Bay. I just think it makes the most sense for him. Obviously, there's been other teams thrown around. I think a dark horse team that he could go to if he doesn't re-sign with Tampa Bay is the San Francisco 49ers. I've seen that team thrown around a lot, and I think that'd be pretty good, but I just see Mike Evans back in Tampa Bay. I think it makes the most sense, and I think they'll be able to bring him back on like a 2-year contract. Wan'Dale Robinson, on the other hand, though, I think he is the Christian Kirk of this year's free agency. Obviously, Christian Kirk a few years ago got extremely overpaid by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and now he's been tossed around from the Jaguars to the Texans. But I think Wan'Dale Robinson is this year's Christian Kirk. He obviously came off an extraordinary season last year, over 1,000 yards, his career high, and he's expecting a payday, and I think he's going to get that from the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, and most importantly, I think one of the reasons he is going to go to the Titans, not only because Cam Ward's an up-and-coming quarterback, and I think he's going to have a strong sophomore season, but his old head coach and Brian Dable is there, and Brian Dable was there majority of the season before he got fired, and Wan'Dale Robinson was putting up majority of his production. So I think Wan'Dale Robinson is going to get a nice payday from the Tennessee Titans, and he's going to be Cam Ward's number one guy when it comes to the slot, and I think he's going to be able to win a lot of matchups and just have Cam Ward help him progress as a quarterback in year 2. Then moving on to the cheetah himself, Tyreek Hill, coming off a broken ankle last season. He's a free agent, got released by the Miami Dolphins. I really don't see him going anywhere else except for the Kansas City Chiefs. I thought for a chance it could be the Buffalo Bills, but they just traded for DJ Moore, and I think Tyreek and DJ Moore kind of offer the same thing. I know Tyreek Hill is like a speed demon when it comes to what he's able to do in the open field, and DJ Moore is kind of different than that, but I think they're kind of like similar bills, and I think the Chiefs just make the most sense for him. When Mahomes comes back is the question. Obviously, brought Eric Bieniemy back. I expect them to bring back Travis Kelce in free agency if he wants to come back and play. And obviously, you'll see it later in this video. I'll have them getting a running back. But I think Tyreek Hill makes the most sense just to go back to Kansas City. It's a match made in heaven. So moving on next, Tyler Linderbaum, the best center, top 5 center in the NFL, and obviously the best center in this free agency class. He's going to get a payday no matter where he goes. I've seen Washington's been thrown around a little bit for him. But I just think at the end of the day, his old coach is in New York. Go to New York, be the center for the Giants, and help them rebuild that offensive line. And Linderbaum, one of the best centers in the league, he could do wonders in the blocking game for Cam Sadabu and Jackson Dart, both guys who are mobile. And I think Tyler Linderbaum, no matter where he goes, I think he goes to the NFC East. Obviously, Washington's been thrown out because they got rid of Tyler Biadasz, so they're in the need of a center. But I think the Giants are just going to have more to offer than the Commanders do right now. So I had Tyler Linderbaum reuniting with his old head coach and John Harbaugh in New York with the Giants. Then moving on to 3 other wide receivers. First, Alec Pierce. He's another guy expected to get a high payday after an extraordinary season last year with the Colts. And obviously, I have the Patriots here. Obviously, they've been the talking of A.J. Brown. As an Eagles fan right now, I really don't know what to think of A.J. Brown. I want him to stay, but then there's other times it's like, oh, if we can get a good package for him, I wouldn't mind trading him. But I just don't think the Eagles are going to budge at this point. And I think the Patriots are going to have to settle for an Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is not bad, but he's not that caliber of receiver the Patriots need, I think, to get back to the Super Bowl if they really want to. And I think Alec Pierce, he's great, but he might be the consolation prize that they have to settle with because there's no one else out there for them to acquire. Mike Evans could be a guy, but I think Alec Pierce has the most offer for the Patriots at this point in the position they're in. So I think Alec Pierce to the Patriots makes a lot of sense. Then I have Romeo Doubs signing with the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, they just made the massive trade, trading their franchise star in Max Crosby, hoping Fernando Mendoza can take that place when he gets drafted number 1 overall. So now they have the number 1 pick and the number 14th pick. What they do with that 14th pick, I think it's interesting. I'm excited to see what happens there. But I think Romeo Doubs is a great receiver. He can be that perfect guy for Mendoza. He's not a number 1, but he's a nice guy that can get a lot of targets. You have Brock Barrett, you have Ashton Jeanty. I think Romeo Doubs, he's shown when he's healthy, he can be a number 1, or he can be a number 1, but I see him as a number 2 in this offense. And maybe you sign him, and then you double up in the draft, drafting maybe a Mekhi Lemon or something like that in the draft. So, but I think the Raiders and Romeo Doubs make a lot of sense for both parties. And I think Romeo Doubs will get maybe a 2-3 year contract, but I think if he wants to get a lot of targets, I think him and the Raiders make a lot of sense. Then Rashid Shaheed, the Super Bowl champion, the guy who was acquired by the Seattle Seahawks at the trade deadline. I think he's going to price his way out of Seattle, and I have him going to the Carolina Panthers. I really like what the Panthers were able to do in that playoff game against the Rams, but they have Ted McMillan, they have Jalen Kroger, who really showed himself out in the playoff wildcard game against the Rams, and he's a great slot guy. But they need that speed threat, and Rashid Shaheed's the perfect guy you put in that offense. If Bryce Young can play consistent football, because that's the main thing with Bryce Young, he can play good, but it's not consistent enough for the Panthers to win games. That's why they finished 8-9. They should have won the division weeks before the season was over, but it took the Atlanta Falcons winning against the Saints just to get them in. I think they need to find a way to improve this offense, and getting Rashid Shaheed in there with Ted McMillan, with Jalen Kroger, I just think is a match made in heaven. So, and Rashid Shaheed's a great speed threat. You saw what he's able to do in a high-flying offense with the Seattle Seahawks. He was amazing, especially in the playoffs. Get him in that offense with those weapons, and I think Bryce Young will have a great season next year. So I have Rashid Shaheed going to the Carolina Panthers. Moving on to the 2 quarterbacks headlining this free agency class, Malik Willis. Obviously, he really impressed himself in the final 2 games, or the final few games he was able to play, especially in that Ravens game, which I made a video about. Malik Willis, I think, is a solid quarterback. I just think you need to have a good around offense around him. And Green Bay had a solid enough offense. That's why he was able to perform. Obviously, Jeff Hafley, the former defensive coordinator for the Packers, is in Miami now as their head coach. So, and the future's not looking bright for Tua Tagovailoa. I think he could be released here very soon. So I think Malik Willis to the Miami Dolphins makes a lot of sense. Also, another team that could make a lot of sense are the Arizona Cardinals, because they just released their quarterback in Kyler Murray, who's a free agent, and I have him going to the New York Jets. Obviously, we talk about Fernando Mendoza. The Jets had the 2nd pick while the Raiders had the 1st. It makes no sense in the world for the Jets to take a quarterback here in the 1st round, because this quarterback class is trash. It's plain and simple. It's not a good quarterback class. So Kyler Murray could be that, hopefully what you wanted out of Justin Fields this year. Give him a 2-year contract. Let him be the bridge quarterback. If he stinks next year, then you draft a quarterback in that loaded class next year. So I think Kyler Murray makes a lot of sense for the Jets, and then Malik Willis for the Dolphins. But don't be surprised if he also goes to the Arizona Cardinals, if the Dolphins wait to see what they want to do with Tua Tagovailoa. Moving on to an edge rusher, obviously Jalen Phillips. It's been rumored the Eagles are trying to get him back. I originally had him going to the Ravens, but I switched it after Max Crosby was acquired by the Ravens. So I think Jalen Phillips is going to return back to the Eagles unless he prices himself out of Philly. I think the rumor right now is the Eagles are trying to go over $25 million a year for him. I mean, I think the 25 is a good set point for him. I don't think you need to go anything more than that. If you're going into the 30s, I don't know. I think Jalen Phillips is good, but I know most edge rushers get paid $30 million a year, but at the same time, it's like Jalen Phillips. he was great, but he's not, I don't think, an elite pass rusher. He's a great pass rusher that deserves great pass rusher money, and I think in today's day and age, that's $20 to $25 million. So, moving on to the two running backs headlining this free agency class. Obviously, the Super Bowl MVP, Kenneth Walker. It's been rumored that he might return back to the Seattle Seahawks, but I think he's going to get a massive payday, and I think that he's going to get that from the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, they had, once Austin Eckler went down, Corey Krosky-Merritt was not able to take that. They were throwing running backs out there every week. They need a solid guy in there. And if Jaden Daniels can stay healthy and the rest of this offense can stay healthy and they can get a good offensive line, I don't see why not. Kenneth Walker's intriguing. For Kenneth Walker, Washington is not an intriguing destination because you can go there, be their number one back, be next to Jaden Daniels and have that RPO action running smoothly. And Kenneth Walker's coming off a season where he won the Super Bowl MVP. He had an incredible playoffs and is a solid running back, and he'd be getting majority of the touches in Washington. And I think Washington has more than enough to pay him what he deserves. Then I mentioned it when I was talking about Tyreek Hill. I think the Chiefs go get Travis Etienne from the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't think he's going to return to Jacksonville. They already have Brashal Tootin there. I think he's going to get a good payday because he had a solid last season here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Kansas City Chiefs need a running back. Isaiah Pacheco has not been the same ever since the Super Bowl against the Eagles the first time around, and they really haven't had a good running back since. Get ETN in the building, and once Mahomes gets healthy, you're going to see, I think, a Chiefs offense firing on all cylinders if Eric Bieniemy still has that magic that he had when he was still here with Kansas City. So I think ETN and Kenneth Walker, Washington and Kansas City is where they go. Moving on to some linebackers. First, Quay Walker. It's been confirmed that he's not returning to the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, I think it makes even more sense with the trade they made yesterday for Zaire Franklin. So I have him signing with the Las Vegas Raiders. Their need for linebackers is exponential, and Quay Walker's that guy. You put him in the middle, he could be your go-to linebacker, and the linebacker that the Raiders desperately need. Obviously, they just traded Max Crosby, so they need a new captain on that defense. Quay Walker, I think, is the perfect guy. You put him at the linebacker, and he's gonna help this defense tremendously. So I think Quay Walker to the Las Vegas Raiders makes a lot of sense. Then Nakobe Dean. Obviously, wouldn't want this to happen as an Eagles fan, but I think Nakobe Dean in Dallas makes too much sense. Christian Parker's there now. He's going to try to get his guys any means possible. I wouldn't even be surprised if he brings in Reed Blankenship too. But I think Nakobe Dean, he's going to price himself out of Philly. Although I think the Eagles are willing to pay him, I think he's going to get an offer that the Eagles are willing to match, and I think he's going to price his way out of Philly, and I think it's going to be in the way of Dallas. Then Devin Lloyd, the Jacksonville Jaguars linebacker, I think he's going to go to the Carolina Panthers. I think they haven't had a legit linebacker since Shaq Thompson, even Luke Kuechly, and they need to keep that trend going of great linebackers in Carolina. I think Devin Lloyd's the perfect guy for them here in Carolina. Then moving on to some cornerbacks, you got Alontae Taylor, who confirmed himself that he's not returning on Instagram yesterday, Reek Woolen, and Jamel Dean. I'm going to start off here with Alontae Taylor. His former defensive coordinator and head coach, Dennis Allen, is in Chicago. Makes a lot of sense in the world. The Chicago needs cornerbacks. When Jalen Johnson went down last year, Chicago's secondary was getting torn apart. You get Alontae Taylor in that secondary, and the improvement is tremendous. So getting Alontae Taylor, I think, is perfect for Chicago. Then Reek Woolen to the Jets. I think the Jets, they're not going to be any better than they were this season. I think they need to find a way to improve. And they traded Sauce Gardner, so they obviously they definitely have a need for cornerback. Reek Woolen's coming off a good season. I think he's going to get a decent payday, and I think the Jets will be willing to pay him. Then Jamel Dean, I have him also going to a New York team with the New York Giants. He's been rumored to go there ever since the weeks leading up to here to free agency, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, you have Cordell Flott and stuff like that, and they signed Javon Holland last offseason. Why not add to this secondary? John Harbaugh's in there now. He's trying to build a new system. I think Jamel Dean to the Giants makes a lot of sense. This defense as a whole for the Giants had a very disappointing season last year after a lot of them, including me, expected them to have a good season. This defense is now going to be, I think, their mindset is going to be a lot different with John Harbaugh in the building. I think he's going to be able to get the best out of this defense, and adding to it, I think, is exactly what the Giants need with Jamel Dean. Moving on to the tight ends that headline this free agency class. First, I have David Njoku signing with the Atlanta Falcons. I know they franchise tagged Kyle Pitts, but Kevin Stefanski's now in the building, and obviously last year the Cleveland Browns ran a two tight end set with Harold Fandon and David Njoku. Why not do it again in Atlanta if you're Kevin Stefanski? Njoku's out there. You know how to use him to the best of his abilities. Go get him, pair him with Kyle Pitts, and I think that tight end group and that entire offense is going to see dramatic changes. Kevin Stefanski is a great coordinator. Who they bring in at quarterback, I think, who they have a quarterback. Obviously, they have Michael Penix. Do they bring in another quarterback to compete with him? I think that's interesting to be seen. But I think David Njoku makes a lot of sense to the Falcons. Then you have Dallas Goedert. I think there's not going to be much of a market out for him. I could see the Carolina Panthers throwing an offer at him because they obviously need a tight end. But I like Dallas Goedert going back to the Eagles. I just think it makes a lot of sense for both parties. But don't be surprised if the Eagles don't bring back Goddard and they bring in Njoku or this last guy here that I have with Isaiah Likely, which I have him going to the Washington Commanders. Obviously, they are not bringing Zach Ertz back. He might retire at this point. I think they need a more versatile tight end, and Isaiah Likely, I think, would do great in Washington and give him an actual chance to show his skills because he has in Baltimore, but obviously competing with Mark Andrews every now and then is tough. So I think him being the tight end one in Washington will be able to show his skills to the best of his abilities and give Washington a more versatile tight end that they desperately need in this offense. Then moving on to the last three free agents I have Juwan Jennings, Jaquan Brisker, and Rasheed Walker. Juwan Jennings, I have him going to the Indianapolis Colts to replace Alec Pierce. Obviously, it's been rumored that Alec Pierce could go back to the Colts, but I don't think he does. And I think Juwan Jennings, is the perfect replacement for him. I have Juwan Jennings going to the Colts. I think if Daniel Jones can get healthy in the right amount of time, Juwan Jennings is that versatile receiver. I know they might trade Michael Pittman. That's been rumored to get save some cap to pay Alec Pierce, but I think Juwan Jennings would be the perfect replacement for Alec Pierce. He's that versatile guy. He's a 50-50 guy. He can make the catches when you need him to, and I think it makes a lot of sense. Then Jaquan Brisker. I had the Titans spending this offseason. I think the Titans need a safety back there. Obviously, they haven't had one since Kevin Byard, and Jaquan Brisker's a free agent. I don't see him returning to Chicago. It seems like they're going over a whole new revamp, and I think Jaquan Brisker to the Titans makes a lot of sense. Then Rasheed Walker. Obviously, the Chiefs have finally got rid of Jawan Taylor, and they really don't have a good offensive line. So Rasheed Walker, who had a great season with the Packers last year, makes all the sense in the world. Mahomes, no matter when he comes back, he needs offensive line protection. You can build the greatest offense you want for him, but if he doesn't have an offensive line, it's not going to mean anything. And I think Rasheed Walker to Kansas City just makes that sense because he's that offensive lineman. You can put him, you can put him at left tackle, protect Mahomes' blind side, or you can put him at right tackle. Either way, he's the guy that's versatile. You can put him at left or right, and he can help protect Mahomes and get this offensive line back to the way it was when they had Orlando Brown, they had Creed Humphrey, they had Trey Smith, and obviously they got rid of Joe Thuney. But at the same time, this Chiefs offensive line is not bad. It just needs some minor improvements here and there, and I think they'll get back to the level they were. But these are all the free agents I have for you guys as of right now. I'll throw out maybe one additional one. I think Tremaine Edmonds, obviously, he got released by the Chicago Bears. I could see him going to the New York Giants or somewhere else, but I think he's going to be a guy that gets a 1-2-year contract and just performs wherever he is. But like I said, these are all the free agents I have for you guys now. We'll see what happens tomorrow at 12 o'clock when the free agency starts. But other than that, I will talk to you guys later. I will see you guys probably for my MLB predictions video. That will be next with some guests on. But other than that, that's all I have for you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and peace.